Going live now. Okay. And I'm going live. And let me just check the stream. I think we are completely live. Okay, great. Okay, hi. Good evening to all of you. I think we still don't, I think people are still trying to navigate and try to get in, so I see that we have one viewer. That's great. Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to this kind of informal chat session that we've kind of set up for everyone. Okay, great. I see everybody coming online. Great. That's fantastic. I'm Sichin, and I'm going to be chatting on this discussion. It's kind of an informal chat about COVID-19 and how it has impacted us, right? So I'm going to hand over to Rachel, our president, and she will take the lead. Rachel?
Hi, guys. Thank you to all of you for joining us this evening and taking some time out to listen to us discuss, the latest things that have been happening with how we've been dealing with COVID. So it's going to be quite an informal discussion between the three of us. And we invite you all to comment, to ask us questions, and, just have a conversation with us. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Rachel Young, and I'm the president of the association. And I work in the private sector under Daylight Creative Therapies. So I'm going to pass you on to Huma so she can introduce herself, our vice president. Huma?
Hi, thank you, Rachel. I'm Huma Durrani, and I'm the vice president of the association, as Rachel mentioned. And I too am in private practice. Very happy to be here and interacting with all of you. So yeah, bring it on.
Okay, great.
And Sichin, would you like to introduce yourself as well?
Sure. Okay, as you can see, we are still all a little bit awkward about this because I think it's our first time. So we are really happy that all of you are here. I can see a lot of people. So we're just trying out this platform and to see how it goes. But anyway, I'm Sichin, and I'm also one of the committee members of the Art Therapists Association Singapore, ATAS. And I work mainly with St. Luke's Hospital. So that's where I'm based.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So, all right. I mean, Rachel, let me pose a question to you. How has it been through this COVID pandemic and the crisis professionally? And perhaps you want to shed some light on also personally, how has that affected you?
I think
these past few months, yeah.
I think it's an important point to start with the transition from going from practice in a studio to teletherapy. I found that quite challenging at first. I found the first 2 weeks to be stressful personally.
Oh, okay.
I was trying to monitor the stream and it just went ballistic on me. Sorry, guys.
It's okay.
We're learning.
Yeah. So the first 2 weeks were really challenging, and it took me 2 weeks to kind of get past, my own anxieties and my own fears and the uncertainty of the situation that we're in. And in terms of, I think, just moving onto a platform like teletherapy was so different, and I don't think anything had prepared us for, well, at least didn't prepare me for it. But what I found was, going into it wasn't as difficult or as scary as I thought it would have been. How did you guys find it? Like when you started with it?
I wasn't comfortable going in with it because, for me, I guess with most of us who are used to working with the multisensory nature of art materials and all, not having that, it left me completely out of my comfort zone. Also, I work mostly with adolescents and children. So a lot of my clients didn't want to do telehealth. And that left me with very few people to work with. And when the sessions that I did do, I felt I was doing more talk therapy than art therapy. So, I had to go into this mode that I wasn't entirely comfortable with. Yes, I mean, there is definitely a possibility. And there's a huge learning curve, and there is a possibility of maybe growing in that direction. Who knows where the world is heading.
Leaning.
But personally, for me, that is not definitely an option that is ideal. Considering that we work very much with art materials, and then not having that the ability to that the absence of the body language and then the connection with the gaze and all of those very important signals that we work with missing. They can only do so much on the screen. So that also was difficult.
Yeah, so we lost that connection of eye-to-eye contact, because we're not actually looking at one another anymore. We're looking at faces, but we're not making eye contact. And that loss, we have a question from Aisha asking how our clients responded to teletherapy. Sachin or Huma, do one of you want to take this?
Maybe I can share a little bit about my experience, and then I will respond to that particular comment. So just to let everyone know, I think because of this particular platform that we're using, we can see your comments. And if you're kind of signed in, then we can see your names. And if you've allowed StreamYard to see your comments, then we can see your name. But otherwise, we can't actually reply to you or type replies to you until after the session. But we'll try as much as possible to kind of respond in the moment, as the comments kind of come up. So back to the point about when this all first started, it was, I would say that I was actually really anxious about the whole situation because, so I'm at St. Luke's Hospital, but at the same time, I'm actually only locum there. So, I also do locum at another hospital, Jurong Community Hospital. So it was kind of like the conversations were kind of going back and forth about like, okay, so what will art therapy services look like, right? And then I think from MOH it cascaded down, and they told us that just focus on one hospital because they also want to kind of minimize this kind of cross infection, cross transmission. So then then I took about 1 to 1.5 weeks to kind of transition over, right? And then when we transitioned over, I didn't really do art therapy, so it was just a lot of like going into meetings and kind of just discussing, which ward I would be in, because I think the hospital itself has a certain zoning policies as well to kind of like protect staff, protect patients, and so so I was anxious because I wasn't really doing anything, but just involved in a lot of these meetings. But eventually, I think what helped was that for myself, I've done quite a bit of tele supervision. And so that experience has kind of helped me a little bit in terms of like just thinking about translating that to kind of teletherapy, right? So I kind of gathered like the other like-minded therapists, people that I knew in the hospital, and so we got like the music therapist, myself, the occupational therapist, and the physiotherapist. So we kind of got together, we brainstormed, we tested the equipment, and then we did it with the clients, because there were some clients that I couldn't see because I couldn't go to the ward, right? To that particular ward. Yeah, and so their clients, the response was, I think it's the next best alternative, because we can't see them physically. We want to be safe for them and for ourselves. So I think the clients do recognize that. I think at first when they initially maybe when they did it, they were like, I think maybe some of the family members were also like, they feel that it's not as intimate. So there was that struggle, but as the sessions kind of progress, I think I've done teletherapy for the last 2 months now. And so, like they have gotten a sense of like what it's like and who we are as well. Some of the clients I've not seen before. So they're like seeing someone on the screen and, trying to make a connection with them. So that, I think, that was the client responses.
I think interestingly, it depends also on the kind of your client as well. Like for me, one of my clients, she's very introverted, and so for her, coming for the sessions in person was always a struggle. So for her, it actually worked really well, and I think she's more comfortable online, and she's used to making digital art, so it was an easy transition for her. In fact, to get her to come back to do face-to-face might be difficult. So for someone like that, even I felt that sense of sort of comfort. And I feel that for clients who are a bit resistant, perhaps this is a good way to break into, breaking the ice, possibly, if eventually one were to move to face. But on the other hand, then I have about a 10-year-old who gets extremely distracted. So we use Zoom as a platform, and rather than engaging with me, I see that a lot of time is spent just changing the backgrounds and stuff like that. So I mean, he wants to continue therapy, but I feel like I'm not doing justice to it. You know what I mean? You get that feeling that, oh, this session really didn't go the way that I wanted it to go. So yeah, I guess it varies with the kind of client as well. What platform have you guys been using mostly? I'm only familiar with Zoom. I've only just used Zoom.
I've used Zoom as well. I've kind of stuck with Zoom, and I've been seeing clients for the last 2 months on tele, via Zoom. And it's interesting because it does kind of start off with, well, this is a new and interesting space to be in with each other. But we're incredibly resilient and adaptable, and how it's been really interesting, watching my clients adapt to this new space. And after maybe the first 2 sessions, the camera's set up right, and they've got art materials, or they've got some stuff ready, ready to kind of go at it. And yeah, it's been an interesting learning curve, I think, for all of us.
So Rachel, most of your clients, are they adults, or are you working with children as well? Because I'd be interested to know how the kids are responding, how the children, and maybe is there a difference in the way maybe the teens or the younger children respond to it?
So right now I'm working with some adolescents.
Okay.
With the children, it was discussed with parents that we wouldn't continue with teletherapy because they didn't want the crossover between classes being taught on the computer as well as therapy being on the computer. So they wanted that differentiation between who their kids were watching or into, like, mixing and talking with. So they really wanted to keep the therapy as a separate entity. Yeah. So I've just been working with adolescents at this point.
I see. Okay. So we have another question about wondering if as a collective, we can compile resources or guidelines for AT Telehealth SG style. I wonder what that means, SG style.
It's like a branding, like SG style.
I think, as resources, we do have a list of resources that Sachin will put up at the end of this talk, and it will also be there for you to have access to later on that you can utilize.
And I'm going to actually give a shout out to Shuding, because she's one of our community members, and she kind of compiled these resources for us. So, great job, Shuding.
Yeah. So yeah, I think it's important to have sort of these kind of conversations in this very novel environment that we are all in. I mean, none of us are really experienced in telehealth as such, and I think we can learn so much from each other and carry these conversations on, and maybe have an SG style of telehealth. Because
I have a question. In terms of confidentiality, how has it been for both of you with having clients at home, having caregivers, having other people now sort of engaging in the space?
I think part of my struggle was trying to create a space for that. So I think I actually spent almost like a week clearing the stuff in one room so that I could, have a space for that. And so, that was, and on top of that, I was trying to kind of just, make do. And so, my struggle was clearing that space. And then eventually I decided, okay, I would just invest in. So what you see behind me is just a green screen. So that just makes things a bit easier. And also, I guess that's kind of related to my other work as well.
But what
Well,
about with sorry, Homa. What about
No,
with
go ahead.
your clients? Like with them, are you getting other people in the therapeutic space now?
Am I getting other people in the therapeutic space?
Yeah. So not only your clients, but people in the background of their homes or their living
Right.
spaces. Yeah.
I think not so much for me at this point, because the teletherapy that I've done is at with the hospital ward, right? So
Okay.
it's kind of a kind of like a client lounge space, common space. But and generally nobody goes up there apart from patients and their family members. So at least that space is still kind of okay for us. So I've not had to struggle with that. But I know what you mean, because like I've been teaching some of these online classes, and so what I've told some of the clients sometimes is, okay, if when you feel that it's safe enough for you to show your background, then do that. If really we can't, then at least you will have my presence, with you. Yeah, that's how I kind of navigate that.
That's a good point. Yeah. What
No,
about you, Homa?
I've had struggle in this regard, because I mean, we're all literally restricted to our homes and with all family members around. So I found this little space in my room that I've sort of, I put a notice outside my door: do not come in. But I'm always worried that someone or the other is going to make a loud noise or just knock at the door, scream for something. But besides that, as far as my clients are concerned, almost every time there's been a disruption in the sessions. There have been people walking behind, or there's been someone, talking on the phone, or so it's not, definitely not the same, not the ideal situation or environment, I would say. So I guess, I mean, we've had to let go of quite a few of the things that we're kind of used to and comfortable with through this. I don't know if it's, I mean, personally for me, how sustainable it is. I'm going to be very honest with you. I'm not entirely comfortable with it. It's not the way I want to go. But what happens if there is no other choice? What does one do? So I'm not, taking on new clients. I'm almost hesitant to take on new clients through teletherapy, because a lot of the work that I do has to do with, what you call the embodied intelligence, and connecting on that visceral level, and nuances of engagement, and this and that, which I'm missing. So, but then, like I said, what if there is no other option? What do we do? I mean, what do I do?
No, I think it's an important question, because we are comfortable in the space that we've, set up for ourselves. And, just coming into learning about new technology and different platforms, like, this what's this called? StreamYard?
StreamYard.
StreamYard.
I'll get it right in a minute. So StreamYard, this is something that's brand new to me, and I find it really interesting that there are so many ways for us to connect and have conversations, and also open this up to people. This kind of gives the community a lot more reach to start talking about things.
Yep. We've just had a question pop up saying that hope we use the Zoom for our future conversations and open it for other people to share their experiences. So Rachel, we were talking about this earlier. Maybe you want to bring it up now.
Well, we would love to open this up. What we were going to talk about at the end was, we want to hear your ideas on what you'd like to hear us talk about. And would you join in the conversation and have these open conversations with us? So perhaps, before we finish in about 10 minutes, we can have some ideas on what you guys would like to hear us, discuss, and if you would be willing to join us. And if you would, we, really appreciate that. Send us your emails and we'll be in touch. So, yeah.
And maybe just to put it out there, I think we are testing out this platform, this StreamYard platform, also because I'm actually simultaneously streaming to 2 of the Facebook locations. So that makes it easier for us, and I think Zoom wise, I think there's a bit of tweaking that it needs to be done to stream to like multiple destinations. So I think for now, we are kind of going with this format because then, we will invite guests, and then, like people can kind of like come and hold the conversation and and then we can see how that can expand or change over time. If we have kind of like a focus group discussion, maybe it might be maybe like up to 6-7 panelists, right? And then the rest kind of zoom in. But then, I think one of the things we're concerned about is whether the bandwidth can kind of handle it as well, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
Go ahead. Yeah.
So going back to thinking about confidentiality in terms of our clients and our own living spaces, and what we're now seeing with when we're looking into getting a glimpse of our clients' home and their environments. We're seeing a part that we don't necessarily get to see, and just kind of watching their interactions, like Huma, you were saying, there's no session without a disruption.
Yes.
Having the interactions between parent and child, or caregiver and child, and it's just an interesting space to navigate. And it kind of makes me think about the closed door of art therapy, and that deep sense of confidentiality where there are lots of people around the world doing art therapy in open spaces. And it's just an interesting kind of space to start thinking about, are we being too precious about that space? Or are we, how do we now negotiate it when we have this platform if COVID-19 continues?
Yep. I think that's a very interesting point, Rachel. And I completely agree with you that sometimes I think the scope, we kind of tend to narrow the scope of our practice when it is so wide. Community art therapy is happening in open spaces, there are open art studios, so the possibility and the range. But again, I think it boils down to what is the need of your client. For some clients, at the end of the day, it's that. So keeping that as your primary focus, I think these adjustments can be made. Like I said, this is an opportunity for thinking about these things. The huge learning curve. Where it's going to take us, we don't know. But I think we need to take advantage and explore it to the maximum, and talk to each other about these things, because I'm only looking from a very limited perspective, and then someone else can, through sharing their experience, maybe who knows.
I remember a couple of years ago when I was attending the American Art Therapy conferences and also presenting related to this topic of tele-supervision, right? I think one of the things that has always constantly come up is this issue of confidentiality. But maybe not so much in what you have kind of brought up, Rachel, but kind of on a tangent in terms of how secure is the platform that we are using, I think previously, a lot of people were saying that, Skype is not a good platform. And then, so then Zoom kind of claimed to be a good platform, right? And then now it's got all these issues with all this end-to-end encryption. And so I think, but in some ways now we are forced to kind of have to use these platforms. And I guess, by having conversations about this, we can find out maybe like best practices. So like, for example, I would say that there's a couple of platforms out there, and I've been testing also like Zoom. I've been testing Cisco WebEx. I've been testing Microsoft Teams. I've been testing Google Meet. And all these are different platforms championed by different organizations. So like MOE champions Google Meet, right? Because they had that big issue with Zoom, right? Of the Zoom bombing. Then I think within my organization, we actually use Microsoft Teams because the whole organization uses Office. So then that's deemed like a more secure platform, So there are these things to kind of take into consideration, and then just kind of bringing that out.
Yeah. Also, I think it's important before we start therapy, online therapy with the client, is to actually very frankly and openly tell them of the limitations that we have. So I had them sign another consent form where I listed down the various risks that are involved in doing this kind of online therapy, so that they know coming on board what's at stake. And honestly, when I started off I openly told my clients that this is the first time for me. It's a trial thing for me as well. So, being vulnerable when rather than just, always trying to stay, have that face of I'm totally comfortable with it, not an issue. I was like, hey, this is a trial thing for me as well. I don't know if it's going to go well with your kid, honestly.
Yeah.
So let's test it out and see. And if they want to come back, great. But it may work for some, it may not work for the others.
I mean, for the first time, we're experiencing the exact same situation as our clients. We're all going through this together. We're all anxious. We're all uncertain about what COVID is doing and how long it's going to last and when it's going to be over and is it going to be over. And coming online and having these honest conversations about what's happening. And, living with this uncertainty. So, I think it's a really important point to bring up to our clients that this is all new and it is different and it's slightly strange not being in the same room. Yeah. So before we close, we've got about 4 more minutes before we end this. Does anyone have any other questions for us that they'd like us to talk about, or any comments? Any thoughts on what we've talked about?
I think there's a point that says there's an interesting point that I think probably Rachel you were bringing up, in terms of privacy, because I think this person was saying that it's an interesting point that in the hospital ward, privacy can be difficult to have too. So I think sometimes it's not necessarily always a single room, right? You have ward spaces where it's just maybe like a curtain.
Curtains,
or something like
that can be very challenging. And how do you create privacy with that kind of space?
Has anyone made art themselves during a session while you're having a session with a client, or has anyone been able to do? Have you done it on? Has it on Zoom maybe where you have that whiteboard option and So
I've tried a couple of options, some whiteboarding, but what I actually do is something that I translated over to from my tele-supervision sessions in which you see me, but at the same time, there's a second camera that shows what I'm doing on paper.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're going to have to show us that nifty trick.
Yeah.
I'm
interested, to see what that is as well.
So I think that's really interesting. And even some of the recent events that I've been organizing, I've also seen, I've had art therapists come on that event. And they've also kind of shown interesting ways. So sometimes it might be just tilting your laptop down a little bit so people can kind of see you working. So it's kind of like half body. But then they can sense your presence. They see what you're working on as you do the session alongside them.
Okay.
One of the things that was interesting that was brought up in my teletherapy sessions was that because I was working with the music therapist, so we realized that each one of us had different needs. For me, the more important need was visuals. Making sure that the client could see what I was doing, could see me. But for her, actually, for my music therapist, what was important for her was actually the audio. So so there were different considerations.
Interesting. Wow. Okay.
So I'm kind of noticing the time. So I thought maybe I would just share this screen so you guys can have a look. Is that okay, Rachel?
Yep,
okay.
Absolutely.
Cool.
Yep.
Okay, let me just see. Okay.
So the screen's gonna be there for later, so you guys can get this information once we finish.
Yep. Can you see on your screen, Rachel?
Yeah.
Okay, so
I can.
These are the telehealth related resources that Shuning compiled. Okay, so you have ones from NZCARTA, the American Art Therapy Association, as well as the American Psychoanalytic Association. Okay, so just so you know, this video is recorded, so you can always scroll through the video again. We'll post the links up on the Facebook comments as well. Okay.
Yep. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, guys, we're gonna close up here. Thank you for joining us this evening. Let us know if you want to hear us talk about anything else next week. We're going to try and do this quite regularly. And so we'll let you know what we're talking about. If no one has any ideas and stuff, we will come up with something and let you know. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank
Sachin.
you.
Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you,
Thanks
Huma.
everyone for
Thank you,
coming.
Sachin.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.